King Xerxes rose to power as the heir to the greatest empire the ancient world had ever known. As the son of Darius the Great, he was raised with the belief that kingship was sacred and authority absolute. From childhood, he was taught that the stability of the world depended on the strength of the Persian throne. When he became king, Xerxes ruled over vast lands filled with different cultures, laws, and traditions. To maintain control, he relied on strict hierarchy and unquestioned obedience. Publicly, he presented himself as a guardian of order and divine justice. Privately, however, the isolation of absolute power began to shape his character. Surrounded by servants and courtiers who feared him, Xerxes lived in a world where no one dared to say no. This environment planted the seeds of moral blindness. As his power grew, the line between kingly authority and personal desire slowly disappeared. The empire flourished on the surface, but within the palace walls, tension was building. Xerxes was becoming a ruler who believed that his will was beyond challenge, even by tradition, law, or blood. The Persian royal court was both magnificent and dangerous. Every movement was watched. Every word carried a risk. Royal women lived under strict protection, as their honor was directly linked to the legitimacy of the throne. Marriages were arranged for political stability, not love. In this rigid system, personal desire was considered a threat to order. Ancient accounts suggest that Xerxes began to violate these boundaries. Driven by obsession and entitlement, his position allowed him to turn private impulses into commands. Those around him, including nobles and guards, faced an impossible choice between loyalty and conscience. Silence became survival. As rumors spread within the palace, fear replaced respect. The royal household, once a symbol of unity, became a place of anxiety. This moral collapse did not happen overnight. It grew slowly, fed by unchecked authority and reinforced by the belief that the king stood above judgment. The empire still stood strong, but its heart was quietly breaking. The darkest chapter of Xerxes' life centers on actions that involved his own family, an act considered unforgivable even by ancient standards. Persian culture placed immense value on bloodline and family honor. Any violation within the royal household was seen as a threat to cosmic balance. Historical sources describe an incident so disturbing that later writers softened its details or avoided them entirely. Whether driven by obsession, paranoia, or cruelty, Xerxes crossed a line that could never be erased. The consequences were devastating. Members of the royal family suffered deeply, and the court was left in shock. No public explanation was given, only silence and fear. This was not the act of a conqueror, but of a man consumed by power. In one moment, Xerxes destroyed the moral authority that upheld his rule. The empire did not collapse immediately, but something essential was lost forever. After this incident, the atmosphere within the palace changed dramatically. Courtiers, who once spoke freely, became cautious and distant. Loyalty turned into fear-based obedience. Xerxes continued to rule, but his decisions grew more erratic. Trust between the king and his advisors weakened, and internal unity began to crack. The damage was not visible to the public, but it was deeply felt within the leadership of the empire. When a ruler loses moral authority, even the strongest institutions begin to rot from within. The Persian system depended on balance and cooperation among elites. Xerxes' actions shattered that balance. Those closest to power became more focused on survival than service. This silent decay weakened the empire more than any enemy army. The king still wore the crown, but the foundation beneath it was unstable. As years passed, Xerxes withdrew increasingly into isolation. He focused on grand construction projects and ceremonial displays, perhaps attempting to restore the image of divine kingship. Yet no monument could erase the memory of what had happened inside the palace. His military failures in Greece further damaged his reputation, reinforcing the perception of a ruler in decline. Enemies were not the only threat anymore. Conspiracies formed within the court, fueled by resentment and fear. When trust disappears, betrayal follows. Xerxes' authority, once absolute, became fragile. The empire still functioned, but its ruler was no longer untouchable. Power that had once inspired awe now inspired caution and hatred. The king who ruled the world could no longer control his own court. In 465 BCE, King Xerxes was assassinated by members of his inner circle. His death was quiet, sudden, and symbolic. A man who ruled through fear ultimately fell to it. History remembers Xerxes as a conqueror, a tyrant, and a tragic figure shaped by unchecked power. His dark secret reminds us that empires do not fall only through war, but through moral collapse at the top. Xerxes' story is not just about ancient Persia. It is a warning repeated across history. When power loses restraint, it turns inward, destroying families, institutions, and finally, the ruler himself. As we conclude our journey into the life of King Xerxes, one thing becomes clear. Behind the grandeur and might of the Persian Empire lay secrets that could shake even the strongest reign. Xerxes was more than just a ruler. He was a man of ambition, contradictions, and choices that left a lasting mark on history. The dark truths we've uncovered remind us that power often carries hidden costs, and what appears as strength on the surface can conceal vulnerabilities beneath. By examining these hidden layers, we not only understand the man behind the crown, but also the forces that shaped an entire empire. History is filled with stories waiting to be revealed, and Xerxes' tale stands as a powerful reminder that every empire has shadows alongside its glory. As we step back from the past, let this story inspire curiosity, reflection, and the courage to explore what lies beyond what is known. The legacy of Xerxes continues to echo, showing us that even the mightiest rulers are not immune to the secrets that history keeps.